Hello, everyone, and welcome to the February 28th Trips and Traps. Andy Serling, joined by Eric Donald.
We have 4 races to bring you on this week's episode, including one from the foggy day last Friday, but it was one of the races you could see. So we'll go and turn our attention now to the 9th race from February 21st, State Bred Allowance Optional Claimer, going 6 furlongs.
Just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the foggy day here because it was kind of an odd day because obviously you couldn't see really at all, a little bit in race 8, but by race 9 you could see, but the prior race you could see nothing. And it feels as though trying to rally up the rail was the wrong thing to do. It's a little bit tough to say that because we're talking about the horse in blue with the orange cap there, and Eric and I wore a lot of orange to commemorate that horse. This horse will end up on the rail in the stretch, and I thought this is FREUDIan. And FREUDIan was a horse that could have benefited from the pace, was maybe closer than you would have expected because we did get a big pace meltdown. The eventual winner is well back, but FREUDIan was the only horse, Eric, that was on the rail in the stretch and had an empty rally.
Yeah, I mean, you would think you're sitting a pretty good trip behind the speeds, and especially now if you know that the 2 speed horses are going to finish last and second to last year, you would say, okay, well, you know, on a regular circumstance, normal fair track, the 5-horse FREUDIan is enjoying a perfect trip here.
Yeah, but the rider, now this rider, Manny Franco, was on the rail almost every single race, actually, on Friday. And what's interesting here is he's coming up the rail. This is the eventual winner, So Scott. But the difference is that So Scott, while he saved around the turn, he will angle out in the stretch. And in looking through, the only way to determine, Eric, which horses may have been on the rail was to try to look at Trackus and try to see the horse that traveled the shortest distance. But of course, you can have a horse that saves ground on the turn but angles out in the stretch, and that horse traveled a short distance because it just had to angle out in the stretch like a So Scott, but in fact did get to the outside part of the track. So those are the kind of trips you probably wanted. But trying to rally on the inside in the stretch, I'm sure, was not what you wanted to do in these races. It's just tough to try to figure out horses who are on the rail. There was an earlier race where there was a favorite, K as a 10 was on the rail, but it's hard to know who was on the rail.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to figure it out, I guess what you got to do is you got to go back and do some work through Trackus and see, you know, some of the race animations that they have and, you know, some of the data that they have and try your best to figure out where these horses were throughout most of the race. Yeah,
I mean, that's what I try to do a bit and try to piece it together by the kind of rallies they made, looking at Trackus. It's not easy, but I have a feeling this may be a very tricky day, but if you can uncover some horses, 1 or 2 that were kind of gems, you may be able to make some money. And FREUDIan's a horse that was compromised by staying inside as the race was falling apart.
I have a feeling a lot of people look at that day and just, you know, for most horses just throw it out. It was a really wet track, a foggy day, people couldn't see something, they'll probably just go to the next race. But if you could find something good that's dirtied up out of there, it's going to be worth it.
Yeah, and the truth is, it is hard to make a conclusive decision based on a wet track performance, but there may be horses that ran at least better than they look.
All right, we'll take a look at the 8th race now from February 23rd. This was Sunday, a nice State Bred Allowance Optional Claimer for fillies and mares, going a mile on the inner track. The 4, Missed a Point, is the horse that we're interested in. I think she had some equipment trouble here. Can't exactly tell at what point in the race it happened, but certainly it looks like she's run off with Manny Esquivel down the backstretch.
Yeah, we're going to try to determine it by showing a couple points, and you'll see her very clearly getting the lead here. And this was one that we wanted to do because got a lot of people on Twitter, and rightfully so, were suggesting, you know, saying, how come the rider on Missed a Point, you know, didn't seem to be riding her that hard in the stretch? And to the naked, I mean, that's in and of itself true, but he couldn't ride her because the saddle had slipped on him, and he couldn't really, he did a great job in actually controlling her. She ran an amazing race in here. She lost by just under 5 lengths, all things considered, because not only, and you look at her right here as he clears off the lead, and you can see where he's sitting, and he's basically got a similar seat to the other riders, but as they go further down the backstretch, you're going to see her literally riding her neck as he's trying to hold on to the horse, essentially, and I mean, she loses by less than 5 lengths, running off in this fast pace, and losing, and the saddle slipping. An amazing performance.
Yeah, it was really an amazing performance, and it's just tough to, you know, tough to figure out what exactly is going on here. For me, I couldn't really tell where it happened.
Right in here, I think.
You think it happened right in there? I think it could have started to happen earlier.
It probably did.
You know, maybe why this horse ran off a little bit here, but nonetheless.
But look at him. Yeah. He's on the horse's neck. Yeah. I mean, this is, you know, I mean, I give this rider a lot of credit, frankly, for doing as good a job as he did in controlling her.
And you can see turning for home when they straighten out, too, where his legs are compared to, you know,
look at the others.
The rest of the jockeys are, yeah.
Yeah,
he's
I mean,
more high up as opposed to the other guys who are sitting down.
Right. It almost looks here as though, I mean, I think his foot is in the irons on the far left. Yeah, it appears to be in the irons. It just seems like the saddle has slipped on him, and there's really nothing he can do. You really do wonder if that hadn't happened, he'd been able to control her better. She would have gone a little bit more slowly. He would have been able to ride her out. I'm not 100% sure she would have won, but I think it would have been pretty close, Eric.
Yeah, I think you would have gotten a much different effort. I mean, a more controlled pace here. The horse doesn't run off quite so much, you know. And down the stretch, you clearly can't ride her either, which is another problem here because, you know, if he's able to ride her down the stretch and, you know, another horse doesn't run off, then, you know, you're probably talking about a horse that's no worse than second there.
No, it's hard to imagine she would have been worse than second. And it's interesting because the winner, I mean, Gary Gadet's done a great job with the winner, Hot Rendezvous. She's won going short, she's won going long, or one loss going long. She had a lot of trouble in that race. It's really a throwout. She won 4 of the other 5 races. And Missed Appointed won, I think, 2 or 3 races in a row. She's completely turned her life around as well. And clearly, she's still in good form. She was just unlucky here.
Yeah, it's a good cast of New York bred fillies and mares. We'll take a look now at the 8th race from Monday. Going back to our old friend Prize Taker here, I thought had, you know, kind of just a wide trip. And, you know, I thought you made a good point when we discussed this race yesterday.
Well, we're going to actually, you see her, the number 8 horse. We're going to show you a visual on the backstretch. She is one big horse. I mean, just look at her right now, and you see her passing the 5 there, and we're going to see her in the backstretch of the 6. She's a big horse, and she's a little tough to ride, tough to handle. She doesn't take the turns that well. I think she is a horse that will greatly appreciate both a slight cut back in distance to 6 or 7 furlongs, but also one turn.
Yeah, she's hung up about 4 wide going around the first turn here, and you can see.
Look at how big she is.
Yeah, I mean, she's like a giraffe compared to some of these other horses.
I mean, she's sitting next to the 6, and she just completely dwarfs the 6 horse here. It's really impressive how big she is, and I think a very tough horse to ride. I give Chris DiCarlo credit. He tries to time it, but it's almost like he's just got to keep her wide and out of trouble.
And the eventual winner of the race is Once a Week, who's down toward the inside, saving some ground here. Vade, the second place finisher, is back in a 6 right behind there. So the 2 other horses that are 1-2 here managed to save a little bit more ground than Prize Taker.
Yeah, they not only save more ground, but they also end up getting more patient rides. And while, you know, they get a little bit of trouble into the stretch, it's really well worth it because this was a race that completely collapsed. Frankly, the 4 horse Milky Your Way didn't run that badly when you consider how much the race collapsed. Not that the winner's that far behind her, about a length and a half behind her, but poor Prize Taker. I mean, it's really tough on a rider. He starts to motivate her here, but she's out in the 4 path.
Yeah, she's way out wide, and you see just with her big body, you know, it just takes her a while to get going, and especially around the turns here on the inner track. I mean, she does make up some momentum there, but the rider's got to ride her to get into position to where she was now, you know, 4 wide.
She's gigantic too. It's really funny looking at her against these horses. She's just like a completely different animal.
Yeah, she is, and she'll just lumber home. I mean, she's kind of one pace, which I guess is a little bit of a knock against her, but, you know, like you said, getting back to 7 furlongs or a mile on the main track, these types of horses seem to fit those races a little bit better, and, you know, perhaps made a little bit of an early move here, getting the lead a little bit too soon as the other 2 horses, the 5 and 6, who save the ground, now tip out and go by Prize Taker in the final stages.
I also think a shorter one-turn race, Eric, will exaggerate her run. I think that she will have a much stronger and faster, more powerful run as opposed to trying to do it around 2 turns, wide on both turns, get her momentum going. A 1-turn race going 6 to 7 furlongs, like I said, I think it'll hit her right between the eyes. And there's no doubt Charlton Baker has done a good job improving her since claiming her. She's just a bit of a project.
Yeah, she is. She takes some time to figure out, and got to be patient with her. One more race to bring you. We'll show you the 9th race from Monday. That's a maiden special weight for New York bred 3-year-old fillies. Thought the horse down on the rail, Prairie Stone, you know, ran well in here considering everything, and, you know, broke about half a step slow compared to some of the rest of the field from the inside. Never a good thing. And I think Mike Luzzi does the right thing here. He sends up inside, tries to leave for position, tries to get that stalking spot. It's going to work out for a while until the rest of the field kind of bunches up around him going to the turn.
Yeah, you're on your own in this one.
Okay.
I don't see this trouble as significant. I see a horse that broke a step slow, but really not that big a deal. And Mike does do a good job. He gets her in position. Now, she's about a half a furlong away from getting stayed a little bit, but keep in mind in this spot, she's about 3.5 lengths from the lead. After she steadies right up in here, what's she going to be? 4 lengths, 4.5 lengths behind?
My thing was that the winner is making that 3-wide move, and they were on even terms about 10 strides ago, maybe something like that. And now the winner on the outside, the 8, is clearly left the 2, who's dealing with some traffic down on the inside, and has about 2.5 lengths on her now.
I feel like the 8 left her because she's a better horse. The 2 ends up saving all the ground. The 8's 3 wide. I think that has to count for something, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it could count for something. I just thought this was, the 2 made a little bit of a move early on to get in the race, and now is going to see, a little bit of traffic kind of develop in her face right here, and Mike Leslie's going to have to alter course a little bit as the 3 horse kind of comes out. He's going to go outside, figures that doesn't not going to work, and go back inside here. I don't know. I mean, it's not a massive trip. It's not a whole lot of trouble. Just the horse, I think, would be a little bit more comfortable with an outside post.
Yeah, I was surprised, actually, in this race. I thought when this race came up, I was thinking, well, this will be a good trips and traps race. There will be a lot of trips trips in here, and for a big field and some horses that theoretically could be interesting. Linda Rice's horse that finished 7th, his first time start. The 11 didn't get out of the gate and did some bad habits, but I didn't really think she did much running after that. We'll see what happens when they come further down the road. We still have a little more time in the inner, and we can always use your help. Trips and traps at NYRAInc.com.
Thanks for watching.